Hey everybody, it's Justin with the BTR Garage. Welcome back. Today we are continuing the unboxing extravaganza for my E36 BMW, my full-time track car. We just unboxed these new Apex Arc 8 wheels just recently. These bad boys, they look awesome, 17 by 9.5 inches wide. And we're gonna be getting into the next set of kit. This is the suspension system for the E36. Can you take a guess what it is? We're gonna open it up here in just a second. So for the last 4 or 5 years or so that I've owned my E36 BMW when I autocrossed it, and for the last few years or so of HPDE with the NASA Car Club on the track, I've been running the TC Kline double adjustable suspension kit on the car, which has been really good for the most part, but they're old, they're worn out. They needed to be revalved and rebuilt, and I really didn't want to go through with that. So we went with the approach that we took on the BRZ. We've got MCS suspension, motion control suspension, a double adjustable non-remote kit for the E36. If you recall, on my BRZ, I had the remote reservoirs for adjustability on that car. For the E36, what we have in the box, again, non-remote, and that is because the remotes with the NASA rules and certain Time Attack rules add additional points onto your classing. So it bumps you up into a higher class, potentially having the remote canisters on the suspension. And the non-remote double adjustable MCS kit is kind of the go-to kit for top motorsport performance with the E36 and even E46 and other generation BMWs. Along with the suspension, which we'll pull out of the box here in a second, I've got some springs, I've got some camber plates, rear shock mounts and shock adjusters and some other things from Vorshlag mostly. We'll pull all of that stuff out of the box as well. But let's get this stuff out and take a look. All right, so we'll get right into it. I spared you the time lapse of me opening all of the packaging and the boxes, so we can just get right to the shocks, get that cut off. This is one of our front shocks. Once we get the packaging off here, being very stubborn. There we go. So front shock, motion control suspension, again, two-way adjustable. Large diameter shock shaft, of course, and both adjustments are actually on the top of the shock, which is awesome about these. You don't have to worry about having an adjuster on the bottom. My TC Kline shocks that I have, the compression adjustment is down on the bottom, so you have to get underneath the car every time you need to adjust the shock, which is really annoying. So these ones have both of the adjusters on the top, and there'll be adapters to attach to that in the other package here. We'll go ahead and pull out one of the rear shocks. And the nice protective sleeving that they apply on all of their shocks. Let's see if we can get this off of here. Very lightweight too. This thing weighs next to nothing. I'd imagine a few pounds, 5 pounds at the most. It's pretty light. Bare shock all by itself. We'll pull out the rest of the parts in a second. Bearing on the bottom for the mounts, and then our adjusters on the top. And let's see what else is in the box. Obviously there's another rear shock and front shock. Stickers, of course, instruction manual, good to have. This is gonna be our assembly kit. So the adjustment knobs here, the spacers and step bushings, nuts and bolts, and then the spring collar adjusters, spring top hats or perches, and then again the spring collars. All right, so we moved the MCS suspension onto the floor. We'll get into the other boxes here and the other parts. These are rear spring alignment pieces. I'll show you where those go when we actually get around to installing that stuff on the car. Vorshlag camber plates for the front, awesome products. These are again for adjusting camber on the front of the car. And we have Vorshlag rear shock mounts, very similar to what we have on the BRZ. So of course we have a couple of those. Get this box out of the way. And in the next box, we have ground control rear ride height adjusters. So these things allow us to adjust the rear ride height of the car. Basically the spring sits right on top of this perch here, and then because it's threaded on the bottom, we can move it up and down, and that allows us to adjust the ride height on the rear of the car. And last but not least, we have the springs for the car. These are Hypercoil springs. This is an 800-pound rate spring for the rear of the car, the rear suspension. And we have, I think, 650-pound rate springs for the front of the car. So front and rear springs to kind of finish off the kit. All right, so I think that does it. I have some partially assembled shocks here. This is what the rear shock is gonna look like with the Vorshlag top shock mount on it. Remember, this is not a coilover in the rear on the BMW. It has a trailing arm rear suspension. So the rear spring actually sits on the trailing arm. We'll show you that when we get to doing the installation here in the future. So our rear shock mostly assembled and then the front shock mostly assembled as well. I'm gonna need the helper spring for this because there's not quite enough room for the shock collars to get the spring all the way up in there. So that will need a helper spring just like I use on my BMW. But here's what it looks like with the Vorshlag camber plate installed. So pretty slick, pretty awesome stuff. I am super excited to get these installed on the car. You guys know how much I love suspension products, probably more than any other project on the car. I love doing the suspension more than anything, for sure. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. The motion control two-way adjustable suspension for my E36 BMW, Vorshlag top mounts, Vorshlag camber plates, some ground control, ride height adjusters for the rear, a couple other pieces as well. This thing is gonna be pretty sweet when we get it together. I can't wait to drive this thing on the track, hopefully in the next month or two. We got a lot of work to do to the car and a lot of setup to go as well. So stick around for those videos. I'll be recording everything like usual for the installation processes. If you guys have any thoughts, comments, or questions, like always, please leave them down below. I love to hear from you. And again, stick around for more good stuff. This car is going big this season. It's gonna be fun. Stay fast out there. I am checking out. Talk to you all next time.